Thank you so much for the introduction, Cleo. Since 1987, The Skeptic has been publishing expert analysis of pseudoscience, conspiracy theory, and claims of the paranormal. And in September last year, I became the editor of the revamped publication, and we've been publishing pieces from all around the Skeptic community ever since then. If you've not seen the work that we've been doing, I invite you all to check it out at skeptic.org.uk. This year marks a decade of the Ockham Awards, with the first ever ceremony taking place at the first ever QED conference in 2011. And we really hoped we'd be able to give out this year's awards in person at QED as well. But unfortunately, our familiar foes Delta and Omicron had other ideas. And so once again, these awards come to you live from the prestigious location of my back bedroom. I have glammed the room up a little bit for the occasion to make it feel a bit more special. I hope you appreciate the festivity of the surroundings. The idea of the Ockhams is that they're a chance to recognise the very best in skeptical activism, the people who are working hard to make a positive difference to the world around them, to encourage critical thinking, to challenge pseudoscience, and to try and make it harder for misleading claims to put vulnerable people in harm's way. Last year's winner was Dr. Natalia Pasternak, who's done so much to challenge misleading health claims in her native Brazil. And since receiving her award, Natalia's gone on to give testimony at the Brazilian Senate as to the mishandling of the pandemic by the very top of the Brazilian government. And she was also recently named by the BBC as one of the 100 most influential women in the world. And I could suggest that this is clearly proof that the Ockham Award is a guarantee of greater recognition and further success. But we all know that correlation does not necessarily equal causation, so we can't necessarily take credit for all of Natalia's subsequent success. As well as the Ockham Award, each year we give out the Rusty Razor Award to the person, the group, or the organisation who's been the most persistent, prolific, or influential promoter of pseudoscience over the last 12 months. The Rusty Razor recognises people who push misinformation, contribute to the collective confusion of society, and muddy the waters with false claims and dodgy conclusions. Last year's winner was Dr. Didier Rault for his studies touting the benefits of using hydroxychloroquine, studies which were based on a very small number of patients and where patients who died taking the treatment were deleted from the data to hide the fact that it didn't work. Follow-up studies failed to find any benefit for hydroxychloroquine, but even today, a year later, the treatment continues to be promoted by many as a cure for COVID-19 on the back of his shoddy studies. And it's fair to say that he was a worthwhile winner. And the fact that he and his institute received quite a few nominations for this year's Rusty Razor Award goes to show just how enduring the influence and legacy of his flawed hydroxychloroquine research really was. The winners of our awards tonight were chosen by the Skeptics panel from among the nominations submitted by you, the skeptical community. For the Skeptical Activism Award, we asked you to think about who out there had made an impact with the work that they were doing, who'd brought real change, who'd made a real difference. We asked you to think about how big their reach was and how they brought a skeptical message to the public and how many people their work might have influenced. And then for the Rusty Razor Award, we asked you to think about the pseudoscience that was being promoted, how far away from real science it was, how many people it was reaching, and what potential it had to harm those who believed in it. And you did not disappoint. And I'm very pleased to say that our winners tonight thoroughly deserve their respective awards. And so without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Alice Howarth, the Deputy Editor of The Skeptic, to announce the 2021 Ockham Award for Skeptical Activism. Over to you, Alice.
Thanks, Marsh. I forgot to unmute myself. I am out of practice at this. So the Ockham Award, which I'm going to show you once, and I'm going to hope that you can see it okay without too much reflection there, is about honouring someone who has done exemplary work in challenging pseudoscience with a wide reach in the last year. To that end, there are a handful of people who might have been awarded this prize this year. For example, nominee Mariana Spring has been working tirelessly to investigate and report on disinformation, a topic that's become increasingly important during the COVID-19 pandemic. The panel also considered the excellent work from Gideon Meyerowitz-Katz and Jack Lawrence for their role in establishing issues within the ivermectin research. This year, the Skeptic panel have decided that the Ockham Award is going to Dr. Elizabeth Bick. Dr. Bick has been challenging pseudoscience for much more than just the last year, but her work goes far beyond challenging only pseudoscience. Over the last 2 years, it's become increasingly clear just how important scientific integrity is, and Bick contributes to this in a remarkable way. Bick manually identifies fraudulent, mistaken, or plagiarized scientific research in the academic literature. She's highlighted thousands of academic papers with evidence of issues such as image manipulation and has been responsible for hundreds of retractions. Bick has been working on this for not far off a decade, starting her work in 2013. And it is thankless work, as she describes many journals taking several years to consider the issues that she raises. But over the last couple of years, she's been especially targeted by harassment, intimidation, and even legal challenges, particularly from last year's Rusty Razor winner Didier Raoult. Still, Bick continues to do the challenging work of identifying problems within the scientific literature undeterred. She talks publicly about how she does this to a large followership on Twitter and Patreon, and trains others to do exactly the same thing that she does. In the skeptical community, it can be really easy to criticize bad science when we come across it, but many of us leave the criticism there. Dr. Bick takes it a step further and really holds academic journals and scientists to account. It's for these reasons that the Skeptic magazine would like to honour Dr. Elizabeth Bick. Please welcome her to your screens to accept this award.
Thank you so much for this very kind introduction, Alice. It's a fantastic honor and delight to have been awarded the Ockham Award. And thank you so much, the Skeptic magazine, for giving me this year, especially since last year's winner was one of the persons I've criticized, DJ Raoult. So, and that was, of course, the Rusty Razor winner. So, in my opinion, science is about finding the truth. And we might be tempted to think that science is pure and perfect. But we might even think that every data point has been carefully measured, recorded, and that every observation is reported in a trustworthy way. We might think that every science paper has been thoroughly peer-reviewed, that every science paper can be trusted, that science is self-correcting, and that every scientist will welcome criticism to their work. We might think that science publications that contain errors or fraudulent data should be discussed, corrected, or even retracted. But I have learned in the past couple of years that none of this is true. Science papers can contain data that are flawed or even fraudulent. And if one calls these papers out, the scientific publishers and research institutions all too often look the other way. That's a real shame, because science builds upon science. Every science paper with mistakes or fabricated data could lead to an enormous amount of waste of time and effort of other scientists trying to replicate those results. So in the past 8 years, I have reported over 5,000 scientific articles with image problems and hundreds more papers with other concerns. Over 600 of these papers have been retracted and another 500 have been corrected. But unfortunately, thousands of the other papers that I found have not been acted upon. Not surprisingly, the authors of these papers did not welcome my efforts either. Several authors have harassed me or threatened to sue me. One of them, Professor DJ Raoult, was the winner of last year's Rusty Razor Award for the worst promoter of pseudoscience. His work, claiming that hydroxychloroquine could cure people from COVID-19, has since then been invalidated. I'm very grateful that the Skeptic magazine not only hands out the Rusty Razor Award for pseudoscience, but they also recognize work done to debunk pseudoscience. This type of work is often not considered to be part of a scientist's job. There's little or none funding opportunities and very few awards. So thank you so much for awarding me this year's Ockham Awards tonight. And I promise to ensure that fraudulent scientists won't get away with even a close shave. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks so much to Alice for presenting the award. And again, once again, a huge hearty congratulations to Dr. Bick for her excellent and inspirational work. We're very, very pleased to be able to give her this award. And that leads us very, very neatly, in fact, onto tonight's other award, the Rusty Razor Award for the promotion of pseudoscience. As you might imagine, this year's nominations for the Rusty Razor were dominated by figures who spread anti-vaccine misinformation and COVID misinformation, including Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, former nurse Kate Shemirani, and US podcasters Joe Rogan and Brett Weinstein. We've also seen nominations for the anti-vaccination movement as a whole and the White Rose COVID conspiracy theory movement in particular. And while they've all very much earned their nominations, we felt that one figure stood out from the crowd for us. Because while someone like Joe Rogan might have the largest podcast audience in the world and Jair Bolsonaro heads one of the largest countries in the world, what neither men have is scientific credibility. The claims that they make do not come with a veneer of scientific respectability, and as such, they're easier to place in context and treat with the respect that they do or don't deserve. But when those anti-vaccine claims come from people who have got scientific credentials, they inevitably carry much more weight, and they can go on to do much more harm once they echo around the Facebook groups and Telegram channels of the anti-vaccine movement. And so, for this reason, our 2021 Rusty Razor Award goes to Dr. Mike Yeadon. Mike Yeadon is the former vice president of Pfizer's Allergy and Respiratory Research Unit, who's since become a hero of the COVID conspiracy theorist movement for his anti-vaccine scaremongering. Throughout the pandemic, Yeadon's been a prolific source of viral misinformation, including claims that masks have no effect on COVID spread, that lockdowns never slow transmission, and that asymptomatic spread of COVID-19 is, in his words, his favourite lie. In an October 2020 article for the Daily Mail, Yeadon predicted that there would be no second wave of COVID-19 infections in the UK and that deaths would fizzle out without overwhelming the NHS. And since that point, a further 100,000 people have died of COVID in the UK alone. Once the COVID vaccine became available, Yeadon's misinformation shifted to their safety and efficacy. And in December 2020, he petitioned Europe's medicine regulator to halt vaccine trials, claiming that the vaccines would cause infertility in women, a claim that he acknowledged at the time was not backed by scientific evidence, but nevertheless, it's a claim that spread widely on social media. By January of this year, 13% of unvaccinated people in the US said they'd heard that COVID-19 vaccines had been shown to cause infertility. And a UK-based study found that 7% of all UK adults had heard Yeadon's false claims regarding infertility. More recently, Yeadon has stated that he believes COVID-19 vaccines are 50 times more likely to kill children than COVID-19 itself, something that is not true, and that the vaccines are part of a serious attempt at mass depopulation, and that they represent a deliberate execution potentially of billions of people. Each of Yeadon's claims have been spread widely around social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, and Telegram, due in part to the perceived credibility offered by his status as an ex-Pfizer scientist. And Dr. Mike Yeadon has provided some of the most effective ammunition for the anti-vaccine movement. And for that reason, he is a worthy winner of the Rusty Razor Award. And we'll be contacting him soon to ask if we can deliver the award to him. However, it's Yeadon's scientific background and the perceived credibility of his past career with Pfizer that we feel he really deserves this additional recognition of the Rusty Razor Award. So we'll be making sure that Yeadon is aware of his new honour. And that concludes our Ockham Awards for this evening. So I'd like you all in the chat to offer another great congratulations to Dr. Elizabeth Bick. Thanks so much to Elizabeth for joining us. And thank you all for joining us for this award ceremony.